Pentagon's released a decent amount of UAP footage. Some of it's genuinely strange, but some of it not so much. So today we're ranking the 3 weakest UAP videos and the 3 that are the most difficult to explain based on the information that we have. File PR-021 was recorded over Iraq in May of 2022. Near the center, we see 2 areas of contrast traveling closely together. There's no obvious sudden acceleration, no sharp turns, no disappearances, no crazy movement, and importantly, the mission report already contains a likely identification of a probable Russian Su-27 or Su-35 aircraft. The 2 contrast regions are probably just different parts of the aircraft, like the engine and the body. This file is probably just in there because probable isn't the same thing as positively ID'd. Military personnel probably couldn't verify the identity at the time, so that's the reason to submit a report. But this is all but ID'd as a conventional aircraft, nothing out of the ordinary here. PR-101 was recorded over the South China Sea in 2024. At first, the sensor appears to be following one elongated area of contrast, but as the operator zooms in, that elongated shape begins to resolve into something else, not one solid object, but several smaller areas of contrast arranged in a line. The sensor continues following the group for roughly another minute, during which the individual signatures gradually become less distinct and their apparent distance increases. The official description doesn't identify these as birds, but these are birds. There are other possibilities, of course. For instance, they could be a group of drones flying around. But that's kind of what makes this clip useful. It demonstrates how inadequate resolution can combine several individual objects into one misleading shape. At lower magnification, the brain sees a solid line, but after you zoom in, that illusion falls apart. And this is the best of the worst. PR-116, Atlantic Ocean, 2020. At the beginning of the clip, it is very hard to identify what this could possibly be. It's an irregular area of contrast, and it's very difficult to determine the details. The accompanying witness report fills in some of the information that we're missing and helps us out a lot here. The observer estimated the object was 12 to 15 feet tall, appeared darker maroon, traveled with the wind, didn't maneuver, didn't change direction, and the observer thought it resembled a large but somewhat misshapen balloon. And when the instrument zooms in, you can tell that this is a balloon. That's 100% what this is. Moving with the wind? Check. No independent maneuvering? Check. No sudden acceleration? Check. Looks like a balloon? Check. Witness says it looked like a balloon? Check. The only real mystery here is why this report remained unresolved instead of being classified as a balloon. Okay, those were easy. But these are where the word unresolved starts to earn its keep. PR-112 was recorded over the eastern U.S. in 2019. Now you're going to watch this and you're going to ask, why is this included in the top 3? Without context, it's another small, indistinct object crossing through an infrared image. And as per usual, we can't determine the size, the distance, the true speed, and we can't identify the shape well enough to identify wings, propulsion, or any other physical features. So why is this here? This is here because of the observer account. This observer had 28 years of experience with the U.S. Air Force and Navy, and he stated the object was small, moving in the opposite direction at high speed, and displaying flight characteristics unlike anything he had ever previously encountered during his career. Now that experience doesn't make him infallible. Anyone can misjudge distance, speed, and size, especially in a very brief encounter. But I do think it says something when someone with that much experience thinks that this is something worth reporting. And that's why it makes this list, but it is at the bottom. PR-034 was recorded near Greece in October 2023. And this clip's about 3 minutes long, so it's a little bit more useful than a lot of the shorter clips we have. According to the accompanying report, the object was traveling near the ocean's surface at about 80 miles an hour. The report also claimed it made multiple 90-degree turns. And that's pretty interesting, because birds can change direction, balloons can drift in the wind, and a drone can make sharp turns, but slamming all those together, that's pretty impressive. We do have to keep in mind that some of this movement is also entangled with the camera sensor itself moving around. So when the camera's panning, the target can appear to reverse or slide across the flame, even if its movements really aren't that erratic. they can appear that way. So some of that 90-degree turn claim kind of depends on the information contained in the mission report or in data that hasn't been released to the public. It might weaken the case, but it doesn't destroy it. So could this be a bird? Probably not. CIA drones don't really fly at 80 miles an hour kind of as a general rule. Could it be a drone? Absolutely. It's probably a pretty strong candidate here. They can fly low, make sharp turns, and present a small infrared signature like what we see here. Could it be a boat? Probably not. It's moving kind of erratically for a boat, and the report says that it was flying above the water, not on it, so I'm going to write that one off. The footage definitely tracks something, and the report attributes very specific performance to it, but the public data doesn't really verify anything for us here. But if that mission report is accurate, this is a very strong case. If the speeds and turns are calculated correctly, and it's really making 90-degree turns at 80 miles an hour, that's beyond anything that we, know about, at least. But if those speeds and turns are calculated incorrectly, a drone or even a bird becomes more plausible. And that's why it's rated second instead of first. The most difficult case so far is PRO-28, recorded in Greece in January of 2024. In just watching this clip, I immediately wrote it off as a balloon. But after reading the accompanying mission report, the object appears diamond-shaped and was traveling at about 500 miles an hour. That's no balloon. Also, very interestingly, the observer reported the only way to detect it was through shortwave infrared, or SWIR. So at the beginning of the clip, we have two views. The one on the left is pretty much what a normal camera records, and on the right, we have the SWIR feed. And as you can see, you can only see it on the SWIR and not on the normal camera. After that, we go over to just SWIR, no more normal camera. Near the end of the video, he switches back to the visible spectrum, the object disappears, goes back to SWIR, and doesn't reacquire the target. Now that doesn't necessarily mean cloaking technology, but you could definitely make a pretty good argument for it here. Now the speed is a much more difficult issue to really resolve here. 500 miles an hour, that's nothing for a normal jet aircraft, but it is definitely not a balloon, and that's very fast even for a normal civilian drone. Now the information released to us, of course, doesn't show this, but it is in the report, so we'll just have to kind of take it for what it says. And then you have the shape. A balloon accounts for the shape, but not the speed. An aircraft would account for the speed, but definitely not the shape. Some sensor effects could account for the shape, but they don't really identify the object being tracked. And all those reasons is why this is taking the number one spot. The UAP archive contains plenty of noise. The challenge is finding the few cases where something meaningful might be hiding inside of it. Is there a case you'd move up or down this list? Maybe something you'd slot in or out? And what do you think PRO-28 actually was? Let me know in the comments below.